one, like you mentioned, sir, is the one I talked about. The obvious, somebody coming to your door, they got no reason to be there, and you see them go 2 doors down and do the same thing. That needs to be called into 911. If you're seeing a home on your street, is it out of the ordinary? Are there people coming and going at all hours of the night? Well, something's not quite right there, because if you've got one house on your block where that's going on, that stands out. You know, generally, not always, but generally there is something going on there criminal. Somebody's dealing drugs, there's something going on at that house. We want to know about that, and that's a phone call. That's not necessarily a 911 call, but that's a phone call to the precinct, talking to our community police team, reporting it, and then we start investigating those types of things. Is it within the norm of the neighborhood? If the answer is no, it may be something criminal, and we will look into it for you. Yeah, Chief?
Excuse me, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank all of you again for being here this evening. This is one of the largest community turnouts I've seen for this kind of an event for quite a while. And I want you to know we hear you. This is your way of holding us accountable, and this is your way of letting us know that crime in your neighborhood isn't going to be tolerated. And we hear you, and I want to assure you that with Captain Nolan and Lieutenant Hayes and their staff, they are going to be given the resources necessary to combat this problem. What I want to say, however, is that you're holding us accountable, but we have to hold you a little bit accountable as well. There was a great question back here, and that question was, why are the burglars targeting our neighborhoods? When you buy a house or when you rent a place, you look around, you try to see what looks safe, what feels safe. Well, burglars do the same. Burglars do the same. We want you to make your neighborhood as safe as possible, but we also want to make your neighborhood unsafe for them. Okay? But that means you've got to take ownership. And oftentimes what ends up happening is when we investigate a burglary that has occurred, and our officers and their officers are great at doing this, they'll go around to neighbors and canvass. And they'll ask neighbors, did you see anything? Did you see anything suspicious? And I'll tell you, most times somebody will say, yeah, you know, I saw this pickup truck pull up, and I mean, even to the point where people say, yeah, I saw them bring a TV outside. And we're laughing, but people are saying, we're saying, okay, well, why did you not call 911? Well, they'll say, well, we know you're busy. We thought maybe they were supposed to be there. They had nice clothes on. All these kinds of things. Folks, if you see something suspicious, if it doesn't look right to you, and if it doesn't feel right to you, err on the side of calling 911. Let us figure that out, okay? Let us figure that out. We'll go down there, we'll check it out, we'll make sure that whether or not they belong there, and many times the burglars that we catch is because of the lady back here who, you know, saw something suspicious, she took a picture, sent it to us, or someone who has called us and said, you know, I think a house is being burglarized next door. We get there and we catch those folks. But you have to take ownership of your neighborhood. John said this several times, and it's been kind of a common theme tonight. You know, keep your lights on, keep your windows or your blinds open. Let the burglars know, I'm watching, we're watching. You're walking in our neighborhood, great. As long as you're walking on the sidewalk and you're going from point A to point B, great. But you start going in and out of yards, there's going to be a problem, and we're going to be calling 911. Be the Alice Kravitzes, if you will, of your neighborhood, and there's a couple blocks over here. I can't speak for it right now, but when I was a precinct commander down here, there was a 2-block area there that didn't have a burglary for like 5 or 6 years because there were 2 women on each of those blocks. I'm not kidding. And they watched everything that happened. And they called everything, every time someone went down there, or every time someone was looking suspicious, they called and went down there. So that's what we have to do. And the take back your streets, the making sure that we're calling in 911, taking those crime prevention steps that Mark Solomon can help you with, it pays huge dividends.
If we don't get to your question tonight, feel free tomorrow to call the South Precinct, get in touch with our community police team, and they'll listen to your concern and address it. Ma'am?
I lived in First and Western for about 8 years, until about 2 years ago when I moved to Holly Park. And I have to say that I have never been so afraid of my personal safety. We've been told that we are not supposed to leave our house after 1 p.m. I work from home, so I'm wondering if my fear is irrational. I've never been more fearful and feeling like I can't leave my neighborhood, leave my home. I can't go to the Safeway when I need to, and I'm just feeling, am I alone in this feeling? And is this too much?
No, you're not.
The comment and the question is, she lives in Holly Park and has never felt so unsafe as far as going out at night, things like that.
Even during the day, not just night. but
And
day.
during the day. And in light of a lot of the crime trends we're seeing, it's normal to be worried, especially with the street robberies, which we have partially under control, but we are still working on those. So sometimes, yes, it's good to have common sense. At night, a woman, maybe it's a smart idea to go out with a friend or two to go somewhere as opposed to by yourself, things like that. That is a neighborhood that John is working with as far as doing community walks, looking at septet, lighting, things like that. So, I mean, those all are issues that we're addressing. But it's normal to feel that way right now, absolutely. Ma'am, you've been very patient in the purple jacket.
Thank you. When you said 70% of the people we've arrested are juveniles, and then I'm hearing this lovely lady talk about this huge collection of kids that you've got in programs, and I know you're working with the schools, and I'm thinking, I've done a lot of volunteer work over the years with the good kids at my daughter's school, and she's going off to college next year. More time to volunteer. I would like to help with the, I would say bad kids, but I feel out of touch. I don't feel, the at-risk kids. But I feel so distant, I feel so disconnected. What can I do?
Thank you.
Good question.
The question was basically, how are we going to deal with the kids that are most at risk and to a degree similar to the type of fears that we have. Although he mentioned about 70% of the arrests that were made for some of the burglary and robbery issues that were going on, we're actually only talking about 6% of the population of juveniles that are in our communities. You're really keeping, by the work that you're doing, you're keeping a majority of the kids active in school and interested in their futures. So your volunteering, your teaching and all that's making a big difference. And your collaboration with people like Detective Cookie and others in the community are what's keeping, 94% of the kids actually doing some great things in our community. The things that Mariko back here is doing and their outreach workers are doing are helping support that same trend. A majority of our kids and a majority of the people that live in our communities are great people, doing great things. And we cannot forget to overlook those factors right there. We have a small percentage doing a majority of the issues in our community, and we are working hard to address those concerns. So don't stop doing what you're doing, because we're keeping a majority of kids going in the right direction. I wanted to mention one thing. The folks outside say that there are a majority of those folks that are outside are from the Rainier Beach area, and they want to let you know in a very strong way how much they support you, and they're really hoping that you'll continue to support them as well as they address some of their concerns. Stopping crime from taking place, because you're encouraging others who couldn't walk in the room to ask the questions to let them know that you're supporting them. When we do our walk in this community, we're going to go by certain areas that had problems. We're going to look at the shrubbery. We're going to look at how the sidewalks are and things like that. So when you do walk at night, you feel better supported by being able to look around and know you're safe instead of worrying about where you have to step. We're going to make sure all the lights in your community are working so you can see on the streets that are out there. That's another big factor. When you can't see what's out there, it worries me. So I know it has to worry you as well. So we're paying attention to those factors. The last part is that we only have about 15 minutes left right now. We're going to address a couple of other questions, okay? Then we got to wind down and we got to start deciding. And you have to decide inside of you, what part are you going to play in making your community safe? We have an added resource over here, and I want Rocky, would you raise your hand right over there? Rocky's with DOC. He's with the Department of Corrections, and what they do is they work with us out of our precinct to go into places where they can check whether someone is violating their conditions or not. Yeah, oh, perfect, great, thank you. And things like that. So when we have DOC working with us, they can do things that we could not do. And they're more aware of the conditions of release of people in our community, so that therefore we can hold them accountable. So those things make a difference there. Would you please come up and ask your question?
Oh, how cute.
I want to make sure you hear it clear.
At what age do people start going into gangs?
Very good question, yeah. For a lot of adults, that's how you ask a question. It isn't prefaced with 5 minutes of, thank you. We're never too old to learn, okay? Individuals actually start getting involved with gangs, can get involved with gangs by modeling something they have no clue of. They can start at a very early age, much younger than yourself. And these individuals, young kids are like sponges. They take in information not knowing whether it's bad or it's good, it's appropriate or inappropriate. And that's why modeling becomes so important. When they start to learn what's a negative influence, but they learn greater by what is a positive influence. And that's our role as we see young kids out there. You don't walk by. We acknowledge and let them know we see you and we care about you. And therefore, they're more likely to not get involved with gangs at this age. They're more likely to role model positive imagery that they see should be taking place in their community.
And on that note, I'm going to share a quick story with you. It's what kids see and what they're conditioned to in their homes and in their immediate community. Years ago, I was in the anti-crime team, South Precinct, back when we were kicking indoors and doing rock houses. A lot's changed since then as far as our training and equipment and everything else. Long story short, I was searching a room. The room was a 4-year-old boy's room. He was the only one in that room. And in a drawer, he had a piece of ivory soap cut up in small little pieces, and he was putting them in little bags. He was emulating what he saw his parents do. So, yeah, and that was a huge wake-up call for me.
It's chilling. I'm just.
Yeah. Ma'am.
I've lived in the neighborhood for 37 years and I've never been robbed. I just want to say. And I attribute that a little bit to my husband, who's always talking to me about being aware of what's going on. But I had a question. It appears to me that it's a youth issue, that most of the people that are robbing people are young people. That's what I'm hearing. So it appears to me that we need to have more programs, more money. We need jobs for youth. Okay, that may be that. I worked in a Pecan Correctional Facility for over 25 years. I was the foreman of all electrical work, and I saw people come in and out and in and out. And I'm not sure personally that that's the solution. However, here's my biggest concern why I'm here tonight is because I think this is one of the greatest communities in the country. And sometimes when communities come under pressure, they turn inward. And so, yes, we need, the police support, the police department needs a lot of support from the community. But what discussions has the police department had about helping us not to still trust our neighbors? This man here addressed it. How do we approach this and get through this so that our community still trusts and honors our diversity?
Great question.
Good question.
The short answer is that something that my community outreach group, led by Lieutenant Hayes, is going to be working and has been working on each individual community to help you work through that. And he's going to be doing that with this community on a community safety walk here in the near future. So a lot of it's just educational, situational awareness, crime prevention in your home, and using that common sense and that kind of radar to where if something doesn't look right, don't be shy about calling 911. You don't have to go through life suspecting everybody of wrongdoing, but when that bell goes off and you get that uh-oh feeling, that's happening for a reason, and it's not a bad thing to pick up the phone and call 911.
And there are plenty of places to volunteer. And she asked about volunteering, and there are plenty of youth programs and other places to volunteer around here. So.
Sounds good, thank you. You bet there are. One more question here behind me.
You mentioned the community walk, and I guess I don't know what that is. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And the next part of this is years ago in Columbia City, they had people walking the street. Exactly. And
Yep.
we do
Central
that
area too.
on a continuing basis.
The community walks that we're doing is a community awareness piece. And he's asking, what are community walks? Community walks are designed around problem areas in a community, any given community, where we look for things that make it so that individuals feel comfortable doing a crime in a particular area. So one of the things that came out in one of the walks that we did, again, was lighting, shrubbery issues, as well as people being able to walk around in their community without stumbling, falling, things of that nature, walk their dogs with ease, those kind of things. The two that we have coming up was mentioned already, was up at North Beacon Hill.
Lockmore tomorrow at
area.
7:30, Beacon Espresso. Come join us. We will join you.
Yeah, there we go. And the other one's going to be in Upper Rainier Beach around the 9900 block of Waters Avenue South.
No, it's just this side of Skyway.
Oh, this-
The south end of Beacon is
And when
it's
is
Sorry.
that?
Wednesday night.
Okay,
Wednesday
and,
night?
Right.
and it's Wednesday night at 7:30. The best way to get some of the information is to be on the email list for Pat. She sends it out to everyone, and there's several other servers that are here that will be able to put the information out as well. It would be great to have you out there also. Jeannie mentioned a piece where we're going to try and get all the listserv people together so that we can kind of get the communication flow going even faster. So you'll hear about that in the near future because they're going to meet with this great captain. And you know, can you all give him a hand for the work that he's doing on that? I gotta tell you, you want me to stop right now, but I gotta tell you one thing. This man has brought together more people in this precinct than anyone before. Sorry, Nick, but I gotta tell you, you got some outstanding people here. And the other part is that he is willing to be here at all hours to be able to serve you the best that he can. And he's modeling this with the officers in the precinct. So as you watch where he goes, things happen.
The woman behind me works at Echo Glen Juvenile Corrections Facility, so she wanted to make a comment, so it might shed some light on a few questions that have come up.
Hi, I maybe could have declared this before, but I'm a registered nurse. I worked as a nurse in the downtown King County Correctional Facility for public health. I'm currently working as a sexual assault nurse examiner for Harborview Medical Center, and I just took a position at Echo Glen in December, which is a state-run juvenile detention facility. In my early experience so far at Echo Glen, some of those, kids that come in with really violent charges are afraid of a flu shot. They are You get them out of the environment that they are just trying to survive. That they were all just trying to survive. You get them out of their fight or flight, their tendency to run away, because even PTSD for kids shows up in reenactment. PTSD. They're replaying out these traumas maybe that they experienced. So I'm not saying this justifies what they do. I'm a nurse. I provide health care to absolutely anybody. But I have to tell you that these kids, once you get them out, in my early experience, when taken off the streets, they are humble, they're scared. They're scared of a flu shot. They're scared of getting their blood drawn. They're scared of telling me why their knee hurts, because they're not used to trusting. So I just really want to encourage all of us to, whether it's wherever you get involved, there's a Boys and Girls Club that's on Martin Luther King. It's one of the biggest in the country. It's really beautiful. At Rainier Vista, it's Alaska and MLK. There's also Big Brother, Big Sister programs. REWA, Refugee Women's Alliance, has after-school programs to help new immigrant and refugee kids and parents. So I just think programs are being cut across the state. The biggest programs, from what I've understood, for kids with alternatives is actually more around youth sex offenders. There are much less programs for kids dealing with rehabilitation, with counseling for some of these other crimes. But why? Those crimes, to me, there needs to be more programs. If they're not going to be there, we have to step up. And you can't, sit across a desk and teaching somebody to read. You're going to realize their humanity, their humility. I see it in these kids. I'm new there. I'm a little naive, perhaps, but I've been, I put myself in difficult positions as a nurse all the time, and I just wanted to speak that.
I'll try to be brief, but it'll be a little hard. I've lived on South Willow Street for 29 years. It's been a pretty safe area. And suddenly we've had a spate of break-ins. The positive side effect is that it's brought our community together, as we haven't been together for a number of years, so that's a good thing. Chief, you talked about the importance of community, and unfortunately I'm going to have to call you on this. If I understand correctly, you live in Issaquah. The problem that we have in this city is that probably far too many of our police and firemen live outside city limits. And we've heard in the past, well, they can't afford to live in the city. Get your officers in the city, because they will be much more a part of the community if they live in the community than if they're here 8 hours a day.
Could I respond to that? So the question was that we should have officers live in the city. He also mentioned that I specifically don't live in the city right now. I have through various times in my career, and I think if you look at how much time I actually spend in the city, and if you talk to my wife, she would say that I actually live in the city. Through our little snowstorm there, I found out how comfortable my couch was, because I spent 4 days in the office. But that is a good point, and this brings up something that I think is going to be very helpful. In the future here, I have over 300 officers that currently should retire if somehow the economy magically changed, and they would go ahead and leave. I've been going to every one of our communities, and I'm asking each one of you to do something for me. We should have calls for action, and this is one of them that I have for each one of you. Bring me your kids. Bring me those people that are interested in becoming Seattle police officers. I am committed to finding our officers, our future officers, those 300 officers that are going to be leaving in the next 2 or 3 years. I want to find them here in the city. And we have some great people, as John has been talking about. We have great kids. We have great people that can become great officers for the city. Help me with that. I'm going to every one of our ethnic advisory councils. I'm asking them the same thing. If we don't end up having a community, if we don't end up having a police department that doesn't look like the face of this city, shame on us, because this is our opportunity. These are 30-year decisions that we're going to be making. Every one of these officers that we hire. We have great ones in the city. Help me find them.
Thank
thanks, Chief. I'll get one more question, sir, in the far back with the ball cap, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up. Again, if you've got anything burning question, of issue in your neighborhood, please feel free to call us out precinct tomorrow and talk to our community police team, and they'll assist you with it. Go ahead.
Quick things. One, I would really like to give a shout out, as has been done a number of times tonight, Mark Solomon has been
Yeah.
awesome.
Appreciate it. Mark, you hear that?
What did he say?
He was-
The question I have is, what do we need to do to get the city to fix the police call box in Seward Park that's on the northwest side? The issues and problems in Seward Park, the department say, not my job, not my job. But this functional city that says that. Well, who here tonight can say they'll take that on?
Let me, Thank you. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, first was huge accolades to my crime prevention coordinator, Mark Solomon. Big kudos to him. The second part was who's gonna fix the call box down at Seward Park, and mayor's office stood up. There you go. Okay. Thank you very much for everyone for coming. Obviously, we're gonna probably have more meetings in this neighborhood in the future. Please
some
get involved
others.
in the